Okay, so I have knit on my sample to 11 stitches before my marker, and now I'm gonna turn around. So a couple things. I meant to have a turnaround here. You're gonna have turnarounds like, first of all, you're gonna have a double stitch every other stitch for a few, and then every stitch. So it's very likely that you're gonna have to like kind of have that float over some sort of chasm. I'm saying weird words. I don't know how to say this better, but okay, what's going to happen is you're going to do just a regular German short row, but we also have to catch this yarn with it. So like this yarn is coming from this stitch way far away. And so it's going to have to carry behind it, and then essentially it's going to like kind of wrap behind this yarn and get caught like this. So, okay, yeah, it's not caught now, but that's what's going to happen. Okay, so we knit to 11 stitches before the marker or whatever it says in the pattern. Then you're going to turn this around, and we're going to treat this just like a German short row. So that means that I'm slipping purlwise with the yarn in front. Sorry, I should say that first. Always have your yarn in front, whether it's a purl stitch or a knit stitch, have the yarn in front, slip purlwise, and then this yarn goes straight up and back in position for knitting. And I always remember that I know that I did it right because it looks like one of those headbands. Do you know what I'm talking about with the knots on the top of the head? That's what it looks like. It's got two legs on either side, and they should be the same color. So I've got two green here on, I guess, the wrong side of the stitch, and then two white on the front side. Okay, that's all good, and we're going to put it in front to be able to keep working. But this is how we catch it. This is going to follow and do the exact same thing. So if you want to pull them together, they will come to the same position, like together in the end. I said that so weird. Let me try this again. So the whole thing I'm trying again. So I've slipped this stitch purlwise, and then that white yarn is going straight up and the green is actually following it, and so they come the same way. Now this is the part that I'm just a little bit nervous for, is the tension on this green yarn. So the white one you'll need to pull pretty tight because it's the one that's like keeping that stitch small, and then the green one you don't want to pull too tight because it's got all three of these stitches that it has to float. So, okay, so here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold my green off to the side for a little bit because my pattern is white stitches on the front side. And so I'm going to purl my white stitches now. And then again, that green is like caught, and I'm going to make sure that it's kind of stretched so that that float will be long enough. And I guess this next stitch is also a white stitch because now I'm on like those 5 that alternate. See, these are the 5 that alternate. So this one should be white. And then this one will be my green one. And knitting on the wrong side in colorwork is just as awkward as it seems like it will be. And again, this is why on this row, you're just going to go slow. You're going to make sure that your tension is the same as on the front side, and you'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to do a few more. Oh, okay, one other thing, sorry, before we get too far away from that stitch. Okay, so remember how like that double stitch has that like bump on the top? Okay, but we also have this green now that has like yarned over. And I think this is the trickiest part because this looks like it's a separate stitch, but you don't want like an extra stitch. It's not anything extra. It's part of that double stitch. So what I would recommend, what I highly, highly recommend, especially because on your sweater, you're going to be working a bunch of double stitches and then you're going to be resolving them all at the same time. So you might forget or whatever. It's also not very apparent, like color-wise, what goes where. So I want to be sure that like you're getting those right and not adding extra stitches. So this double stitch, obviously they stay together, but then it's also this like extra yarn over that we were carrying that color. So I'm putting all three of them together, and when I come to them, I'm going to knit them all together, and I'll show you that here in a second as well. I'll probably do one on either side, or two on either side rather. Okay. Then this one. Can you tell that I'm fighting for my life here, knitting on the floor? Color work on the wrong side. Okay, and also this is my first row of like the new pattern. Does that make sense? So you're gonna have to be really careful about like what the pattern is. Oh, and actually look, I did this wrong. Yeah, I did this wrong. Because this is every other, but I forgot that my beginning of round is right here. So you might, well, yeah, you will have that problem where you're doing one thing on this side, but you're coming back and it's the second row of that color work. But this, once you pass that beginning of round, it's the first row of that color work. Does that make any sense? Because you're going to be on different counts now on the right side and the wrong side. And again, it'll even out like at the end, like we talked about that with the increases and the decreases on the raglan. Just do the decreases on the right side. And so on the left side of the sweater, you're going to have 2 rows where you haven't done any decreases in a row, because when you come around, you're going to be working the wrong side first. Yeah, so it's just like that. You'll have to be careful. And the reason my brain didn't signal that to me is because I don't have a marker for my beginning of round, because that's the kind of person that I am. Okay, this one should be green then. Glad we did this in this pattern. Then I could remember that. So again, I'm working the first row of like that color chart, I guess. So this one, even though they look like they're every other, they're going to be all white because when I look at it from the right side. So again, just go slow. Make sure that you're like checking what you're doing. It's not impossible to take out, but you know, if you don't have to. Okay, and then this side, I'm ending on in that like every other check situation. So this is going to be a little bit easier with the float, but I'm stopping again 11 stitches before my marker, and then I just turn my work and work a double stitch like normal. And again, I tend to forget this too if it's been a long time since I've done double stitches or German short rows, is you always have your yarn in the front and then you're slipping purlwise, and then that yarn comes straight up. and so that you get that double stitch little bump on the top. Nice. And then again, for this one, you have to have your float do the exact same thing that your yarn just did. So it's going to move in parallel. So it's going to come again to the front, but I'm not slipping this stitch because I'm not working a double stitch on the second stitch. That float is just following my yarn. And then we do in pattern now. So because I'm on the every other stitches, this one is green, this one is white, and then I'm to my white section, so I'm going to have 7 white stitches in a row. And I'm going to do those white stitches, and then I'm going to come back for that double stitch and make sure that I put it on like a marker, because I think that will be hugely helpful. Good thing I've got one just sitting in the bottom of my bag. Okay, so again, this is the double stitch. It's got that knot here on the top, and then the white was its like extra wrap. Yeah. And when we resolve it, it'll work out and you won't see that extra. Sorry, let me go back. I just want to see something. I think this should be... Sorry, I just want to do it again because... Oh, you know what? Let's see. I think when you do it, hold them together like this. Sorry, instead of doing them like separate. So the first time that I did this, I held this yarn and I did the wrap, and then I put the white one like, and it ended up kind of in front of that green. So I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to hold both of them in front. Then I'm only slipping this first stitch purlwise. Sorry, let me do this better. Then I'm only slipping this first stitch purlwise and lifting up. So I would do this separately because that green needs to be tighter. See how that just changed that shape? So that green should have that knot up on the top, and then the white will follow it. Sorry, that's better, because then when I knit this stitch, it will be, yeah, it will be the right color. Again, the white had come between those stitches, and that's not right. It should be behind. It should follow the whole time. Okay, sorry about that. So actually this one might stay together because of the way that they're kind of wrapped around each other. So, but I'm still gonna mark it. Okay, nice. Then we'll keep going and I'll show you how to resolve. Okay, so again, I've now done 2 rows of my color work here on this side, but on this side, I'm entering my 3rd row. Does that make sense? So solid white here. It's because that was just the beginning of round that, again, I haven't marked because I'm lazy. Okay, so, but it's pretty easy to just like follow the pattern. Just look below you. It just gets hard if you're not paying attention, or I definitely had to go back a couple times. Okay, okay, then I'm in my white section. Okay, this is my double stitch, and there's 3 parts to it, right? There's that double stitch, which is normal, and then there's that extra floaty situation. And then I've got my next stitch and my next stitch. So on the first decrease pattern, you're going to give a double stitch every other stitch. So that one was a double, that one's regular, and then we're going to turn around and make that one a double. But on the second like decrease method, you're going to have a double stitch every single stitch. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and make this one a double. So we put, I think the better way to do the whole thing is put your yarns together and then slip that stitch purlwise, lift up those yarns as they come to be ready for the next position. And again, they're going to have different tension, right? So be careful on this, work one at a time, and then we can adjust as needed. So I'm going to do that white one, and that one is the one that should be tight because that's the one that's making that double stitch happen. I've got 2 stitches with that one. And then the green, I'm going to make sure that its float is not too tight and like distorting the stitch above it. So I'm giving it some slack here and then purl this stitch with it. Okay, again, beginning of round, so my pattern is changing. Be so careful there, and you'll just, again, you can look at it from the right side. You'll kind of follow with what you see. Okay, I'll do one more on this side, and then I'll start to resolve them. You'll see how that looks. Okay. So again, just to make sure that we know what we're doing, this whole clump that again I've put in a marker, that's a really good idea, that's the double stitch. And you can kind of look at the stitches around it too. So I've got 1, 2 more that I must do, and then that's the normal stitch that will be in between my double stitches. So just be really careful on that. When I was doing it on my sweater, I had definitely a few moments of like, is that a stitch or I don't know, it just like this one next to it gets lost. And anyway, so you'll have 1 unworked stitch in between the 2. Okay, so now I'm ready to turn. Okay, double stitch, regular, that looks kind of squished, but it's going to be okay. And then to do my German short row, both are coming in front, and it just happens on this like right side. I think that when you turn back to the right side that it like is weird, and you have to definitely put them together. Okay, both yarns lift up. And you'll notice I'm pulling that green one tighter because that green one is the one that like makes that double stitch happen on the top. So just watch your tension there. Okay. And then we've got some white stitches happening. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, see, I made a mistake. This guy should have been green. So on this one, because it's just 1 stitch, I would just like undo it and then catch the float. And there might be like a bit of tension, and if it's not too far back, you could just go back. But I would just like make sure, check often. Doing that color work on the wrong side is a little bit trickier. So now my white yarn is going to be too loose, and my green is a little bit too tight. I think I definitely cheated like that for one stitch. But yeah, if you miss 5 stitches, then yeah, not so much. You'll have to go back for those ones. Yeah, so just pay attention to like what row you're on, where the color changes are. So this right here would be I'm on the last row of this section. But also, I am going to resolve here in my video. So yeah, just be careful about the colors. But you should be able to look around you, count the rows, and be able to see where you're at. Okay, I'm going to show you how to resolve these 2 stitches. And if you need more, please let me know. I can make a little video. We can FaceTime, whatever you need. But when you resolve all of those stitches, you'll be doing so in the main color. That's what I did on this sample right here, and I think it looks great. Again, the tension is a little bit tricky, but there's no like gaps. You don't notice. It doesn't look weird. So I'm going to take my main color and knit all of those stitches. And I did a row of just knit stitches in my main color. And then after that, I did the ribbing in that color. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Like here, it might look, and you can follow your columns of stitches, but I did not mark this double stitch. I didn't have any markers. So, but I just don't want you to get confused and add an extra stitch. So this is a row or a column right here. So that's for sure knit. But see how this green one doesn't have a row below it? That's because that's like the catch. That's the one that we have to catch behind the other. So I'm knitting into the double stitch, and then you've also got that green leg to catch. And I'm going to do the other one, and then we'll go back and look. Okay, this one I did put in a marker, so it's easier. I can, again, you should have kind of 3 things that you're picking up. 2 legs in front, and then the leg of that like float, that catch. And this is what they look like. I mean, I guess I've got my split happening here. I'll adjust so that we can see the tension. And like on mine, like that little green, that green right there, that's that float. And if I just like pull it on the other side, then it kind of evens it out. And I think it'll look great when you're finished and the whole thing is over. Yeah, you can kind of see that double white there, but I think it'll even out nicely. Yeah, and then we'll resolve the other 2 on the other side. Okay, I have a marker right here because this one is my double stitch, and I guess now triple stitch because I've got, again, that extra weird leg situation. So as I take this marker out, I'm just going to be real careful that I'm catching all 3 of the things. So double stitch, but also that white one is that extra float. That's a normal stitch. This one I don't have a marker on, but I should be able to see the double stitch and the float. And this green, that's the float. And then the double stitch is kind of wonky on this one. Maybe I pulled it too tight. Sorry. What is happening? It's right there. Yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, I think the green is too tight on this one. Maybe the right, or maybe the white is wrong. Sorry, let me see if I can go back and think about how it should be, because this stitch should be